The first time I saw the second light, I thought it was a reflection. That's what anyone would think. You're standing on a balcony 16 stories above the Bosphorus. You're watching shipping lanes through a thermal scope at 4 in the morning, and you see something silver on the water that doesn't match the angle of the moon. Your first instinct is optics. Refraction. Some trick of the straight surface. I didn't report it. That was March. I need to explain what the tower is, because people hear maritime observation and they picture a lighthouse. It's not a lighthouse. It's a decommissioned telecommunications relay on the Asian side of Istanbul, repurposed in 2019 by a private maritime risk consultancy called Carador Group. The building is brutalist concrete, 18 floors, with the top 3 converted into a monitoring suite. We watch shipping traffic. We flag anomalies, unregistered vessels, AIS spoofing, route deviations. It's contract work for insurers, mostly. Lloyd's. Some government adjacency I've never been briefed on directly. There are 4 of us on rotation. 2 days, 2 nights, 12-hour shifts. The night pair works the 16th floor, a long room with 7 monitor bays, a coffee station that always smells burnt, and floor-to-ceiling windows facing the strait. The windows are the point. Even with satellite feeds and AIS overlays, the consultancy insists on visual overwatch. Human eyes on the water. That's what they're paying for. My night partner is a woman named Denise. She's been at Carador longer than me, 4 years to my 14 months. She's precise, efficient, and does not like conversation during the first 6 hours of shift. I respect that. Most of what we do is silent anyway. Watch. Log. Flag. Repeat. The second time I saw the light was 11 days after the first. April 3rd, 3:47 a.m. I was running a routine sweep with the thermal imager, standard pass across the northern approach, and there it was again. A luminescence on the water's surface that didn't correlate with any light source I could identify. Not the moon, which was behind cloud cover. Not a vessel. The AIS overlay showed nothing in that position. Not shore light from the European side. Wrong color temperature, wrong behavior. It moved. Not like light on water moves. Not rippling, not scattering. It moved with direction. Slowly, southward, against the current. I watched it for 6 minutes before it faded. I logged it as unidentified surface luminescence, transient, no correlating traffic. Standard language. Denise didn't ask about it. She was focused on a bulk carrier that had deviated from the main channel. If you're listening to this late at night, alone with something you can't quite name, I understand that. If this channel is where you end up on nights like that, you can subscribe. I'm going to keep telling these things whether anyone hears them or not. But it's better when someone does. The third sighting was April 9th. The fourth was April 14th. Then April 17th. Then 20th, 22nd, 23rd. I started keeping a separate log. Not in the system. In a notebook I brought from home. Black moleskine, small grid paper. I noted time, duration, bearing, apparent size, movement direction, and weather conditions. By the end of April I had 11 entries. The pattern wasn't regular. Not tidal. Not lunar cycle, I checked. Not correlated with traffic volume. But it wasn't random either. The intervals were shortening. I told Denise on April 25th. She was eating almonds from a small tin she keeps in her desk drawer. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she put the lid back on the tin, aligned it precisely with the edge of her keyboard, and said, "What bearing?" I told her, "Roughly 340 degrees from our position." Northern approach, mid-channel. She nodded once. Then she said something that didn't make sense to me at the time. It's not mid-channel. It's where the depth drops. I asked her what she meant. The Bosphorus has a submarine canyon. Runs north-south, deeper than the surrounding floor. 65 meters in some places where the surrounding depth is 20. Your light sits over the canyon. I asked how she knew the bathymetry that precisely. She didn't answer. She went back to her monitors. That night, still April 25th, I saw it again. 2:11 a.m. But this time it was brighter. And this time, it wasn't alone. There were two luminescences. The original, I'd started thinking of it as the primary, sat at its usual bearing, 340. The second was at roughly 290. West-northwest. Closer to the European shore. Both moved southward. Same speed. Same steady, currentless drift. I logged the primary in the official system. I didn't log the second one. I don't know why. Something about acknowledging it felt premature. Like naming something makes it real in a way that observing it doesn't. Denise saw me watching. She stood behind my station for a full minute, looking out the window. Then she said, "You can see it without the scope." I looked up from the thermal display. She was right. Through the window, with naked eyes, I could see a pale glow on the water. Silver-white. Like moonlight, except the moon was a waning crescent at 12 degrees elevation, and the glow was directly below us. Not reflected from above. Generated from beneath. I stood up. Walked to the window. The glow was maybe 800 meters out. It illuminated the water from below in a circle roughly 40 meters across. The surface of the strait, normally black at that hour, looked like frosted glass above it. "How long have you known about this?" I asked. Denise sat back down. 16 months. "And you never reported it?" I reported it once. My first week on nights. What happened? Vulcan came up from administration the next morning. Told me the strait produces bioluminescent events. Told me it's in the induction materials. Told me to log it as transient bioluminescence and not to elaborate. Is it in the induction materials? No. I went back to my station. The light was fading. 2:34 a.m. Denise. Yes. There's a second one tonight. Bearing 290. She was quiet for a long time. Then, that's new. Over the next 3 weeks, the pattern accelerated. By mid-May, I had 47 entries in my notebook. The primary light appeared almost nightly. The secondary appeared every 2 to 3 nights. Twice, I observed a third, bearing 015, just barely in our visual range to the northeast. They always move south. Always the same speed. I calculated it roughly as 1.2 knots, though it's hard to be precise with a visual estimate at that range. Always against the prevailing surface current. Always between 1 o'clock and 4 a.m. They never appeared on nights when the moon was above 30 degrees elevation. I noticed that on May 11th, checked it against my log. It held. Every sighting occurred when the moon was either below the horizon, below 30 degrees, or obscured by cloud cover. The lights appeared only in the absence of actual moonlight. Or rather, they appeared only when they could be mistaken for moonlight. That realization changed something. I started watching differently after that. Not as a maritime observer logging anomalies. As something else. A witness to a behavior. Because what I was observing had the structure of behavior. It had timing. It had conditions. It had preferences. May 16th, 1:44 a.m. I was alone on the floor. Denise had gone down to the 4th level for a technical issue with the backup generator relay. The primary light was present, bearing 338. I watched it through the thermal scope. Thermal showed nothing. I pulled back, looked with my eyes. The glow was clearly visible through the window. I checked the thermal display again. The water surface at that bearing showed uniform temperature. No thermal signature at all. A light source that produces visible illumination but no heat. I switched to the low-light camera on channel 6. The camera showed the straight surface. Dark. Uniform. No glow. I looked up from the monitor. Through the window, there it was. Silver white. 40 meters across. Unmistakable. I pointed the camera directly at the bearing I was looking at. Adjusted focal length. The screen showed black water. The light was visible only to direct human observation. Not to thermal imaging. Not to low-light cameras. Not to any sensor in our suite. I wrote in my notebook, visible to eyes only. No instrument capture. Confirmed 3 times. When Denise came back, I told her. She nodded like I'd confirmed something she already suspected. It's not light, she said. What do you mean? If cameras can't see it, and thermal can't detect it, it's not electromagnetic radiation. It's not photons hitting the water. It's something else. Then what am I seeing? She looked at me. Denise has very dark eyes, and when she's being serious about something, genuinely serious, she doesn't blink. You're seeing what it wants you to see. May 19th. A Monday. Day shift had left a note about a visit from Vulcan. The administrator Denise had mentioned. He'd asked whether night shift had any equipment issues to report. Routine, apparently. He does it once a month. But Denise told me Vulcan never visits during night shift. Never comes above the 8th floor after 8 p.m. She'd been here 4 years and had never seen him in the monitoring suite after dark. I asked why that mattered. Because he's checking whether we are watching. Everyone watches. That's the job. Not the water, she said. He's checking whether we are watching the lights. May 22nd. 2:07 a.m. Primary light at 340. Secondary at 288. Both present, both moving south. And then, a third. But not at 015 where I'd seen it before. Bearing 180. Due south. Between us and the Sea of Marmara. I checked the bearing twice. Recalculated. The third light was south of the other 2. Ahead of them. In the direction they were moving. It wasn't drifting south. It was stationary. Waiting. The primary and secondary moved toward it at their usual 1.2 knots. Over the next 40 minutes, I watched them converge. At 2:51 a.m., all 3 occupied roughly the same position, bearing 185, maybe 2 kilometers south of our tower. Then they merged. The glow intensified. Expanded. From 40 meters across to what I estimated as 200. The surface of the strait in that area looked like daylight, a perfect silver-white circle of illumination, visible from 16 stories up, clear as noon. 3:03 a.m. It went dark. Not faded. Not dimmed. Off. Instantaneous. The strait was black again. Denise and I sat in silence for a long time after that. The coffee station gurgled. A container ship passed through the main channel, its AIS tag blinking green on our overlay. Normal traffic. Normal night. They're gathering, I said. Dean Eyes didn't respond. Dean Eyes. They're moving toward a point and combining. That's coordinated behavior. Yes. What are they? She reached into her desk, pulled out a folder, not a corridor folder, a plain manila envelope, unsealed, with no markings. Inside were 6 photographs, printed on matte paper. Each showed the strait at night, taken from what appeared to be our floor, through our windows. Each showed a pattern of lights on the water. The earliest photograph was dated on its back in blue pen, March 2021, 3 years before I started. In that photograph, there was one light, small, faint, north of our position. The next, June 2021, still one light, slightly larger. November 2021, one light, larger still. February 2022, 2 lights. September 2022, 3. January 2023, 5. 5 lights, arranged in a loose crescent on the water surface, all south of the tower. Who took these? I asked. Tarek, the night observer before me. Where is he now? He left. Voluntarily. Or so his file says. You don't believe that? His last entry in the official log was a transient bioluminescence report. Same language we all use. But his notebook, which he left in the desk I use now, his notebook has a different final entry. She pulled a small green notebook from the same drawer, opened it to the last written page. The handwriting was tight, angular. The entry read, "They are not in the water. They are not under the water. They are using the water as a surface, like a screen. What I see is projected from somewhere I cannot determine. The source is not below. It is not above. It is at the angle the moon would be if the moon were present." Below that, in larger letters, underlined twice, "The second moonlight comes from where the moon isn't." I read it 3 times. He's saying the light source is positioned where the moon should be, but isn't. Yes. But there's nothing there. I've checked. When the moon is below the horizon, there's just sky. There's just sky that you can see. 3:40 a.m. I walked to the north-facing window. The sky above the strait was clear. Stars. The faint amber of Istanbul's light pollution on both shores. The crescent moon was long set. It had dropped below the horizon at 23:40. Where the moon had been, roughly 280 degrees azimuth, now well below the horizon, there was nothing. Empty sky above the curved horizon of the Marmara. But I looked at the water, and the water was lit from that angle. The shadows of the small waves, the chop on the straight surface, they had directionality. I'd never noticed before because I'd never looked for it. But the tiny shadows cast by each ripple pointed away from a source at roughly 280 degrees azimuth, maybe 10 to 15 degrees below where the horizon would be if the horizon were flat. The water was receiving light from an angle that corresponded to nothing visible in the sky. Something was illuminating the strait from a position below the horizon, from a direction where no light source existed, unless it existed below the curvature of the Earth, or unless it existed at the moon's position, continuing to shine on this patch of water even after geometry said it shouldn't be visible anymore. A second moonlight. Not a reflection. Not bioluminescence. Not any instrument-detectable phenomenon. A light that only human eyes could perceive, from a source that occupied the moon's trajectory but continued past the point where the Earth should block it. I sat down heavily. "This is why we are here," I said. "This is why they want human eyes on the water." Dean Eyes was watching me. patient. The instruments can't see it, I continued. Cameras can't capture it. Only human vision detects whatever this is. That's why Carador insists on visual overwatch. That's the real contract. Yes. We are not watching shipping traffic. We are. That's real work. But it's not why the night shift exists. We are here to see the lights. We are here to see them, count them, track their movement, report their behavior. But we don't report them. Not really. Transient bioluminescence, that's not a report, that's a dismissal. Denise closed the folder. Put it back in the drawer. We report to Vulcan. Once a month he asks if there are equipment issues. That's the question. If we say no, everything is visible, everything is normal, that means the lights are still behaving as expected. If we say yes, equipment issues, things we can't see clearly, that means something has changed. And has it changed? The gathering I saw tonight, the convergence, has that happened before? She didn't answer immediately. She checked the time. 3:58 a.m. Then she went to the window. Look. I joined her. The straight was lit again. But not in one place. Not in 2 or 3. I counted. 7, 8, 9 distinct areas of illumination, spread across the full width of the Bosphorus from shore to shore, all moving south, all the same silver-white, all perfectly circular, 9-second moons on the water. This is new, Denise said. Her voice was different now. Not calm in the way she chose to be calm. Calm the way someone is calm when they've made a decision. How many was the most before? 5. In Tarek's photographs. 5 was the most anyone documented. And 9 means what? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. But Vulcan's question is about whether we can still see them. Whether human eyes still work for this purpose. And I think. She stopped. 4 a.m. Every light on the water went dark simultaneously. Not one by one. Not fading. All at once. Like a switch. And at the exact same instant, the fluorescent tubes on our ceiling flickered. 1 second of darkness on the 16th floor. Then everything was normal again. Denise was gripping the window frame. Her knuckles were white. That's never happened before, she whispered. The rest of that shift passed without incident. Dawn came. The strait turned grey, then gold. Cargo ships queued at the northern approach. The city woke up on both shores. Ferries began their crossings. Normal. All of it. But I couldn't stop thinking about what Tarek had written. The second moonlight comes from where the moon isn't. And what that implied about the source. Something at lunar distance or lunar position that wasn't the moon, that illuminated selectively, that was visible only to organic visual processing. Something that, by every physical law I understood, could not be there. I went home at 8 o'clock. Slept poorly. Dreamed about geometry, about curves and horizons and the space just past the edge of what's visible. I woke at 3 p.m. and sat in my apartment watching the afternoon light move across the wall and thinking about angles of incidence. That evening I came back for shift start at 8 p.m. Denise was already there. She was standing at the window, even though sunset hadn't fully completed and the shift was still in its administrative first hour. Vulcan came today, she said without turning around. During day shift. After day shift. Between 6 p.m. and 19:30. He asked Murat and Jem whether they'd noticed anything unusual about the building's electrical system. The flicker. He knows. Or he was told. Told by who? She turned. The lights went out on every floor simultaneously. Not just us. The whole tower. Building management logged it as a grid micro-interruption, but I checked. The surrounding buildings on this street had no outage. It was only us. So something affected our building specifically. At the exact moment the water lights went out. I sat at my station, booted the monitors, ran through the startup checklist. AIS overlay loaded. Camera feeds nominal. Thermal suite calibrating. 2047. Full dark outside. The strait was busy with evening traffic. Tankers, container ships, a cruise vessel heading north. 2130. Traffic thinned. 2215. The cruise ship cleared the northern approach. The strait settled into its quiet night rhythm. 11 p.m. Moon transit calculated. Tonight the moon was a thin crescent, setting at 2210. Already below the horizon. I waited. 2344. Nothing. 015. Nothing. I checked my notebook. Reviewed the timing of previous sightings. Earliest had been 1:03 a.m. Latest onset, 2:48 a.m. The window was still ahead of us. 1 o'clock. I started my visual sweep. Bearing 000 through 360. Slow, methodical. The water was dark everywhere. Normal wave patterns. Normal reflected city light on the surface near both shores. 1:30. Nothing. Denise was watching too. I could tell by her posture. She wasn't at her keyboard. She was at the window. 1:47. There, she said. Bearing 340. The primary. Right on schedule. Faint at first. A spreading silver beneath the surface like something surfacing from deep water. But it wasn't surfacing. It was illumination without source. I watched it establish. Grow from 10 meters to its usual 40. Begin its southward drift. 1, I said. 152. Bearing 290. Secondary. 2. 155. Bearing 015. 3. 158. Bearing 260. 4. Then, between 2 o'clock and 2:04, 5 more appeared. Different bearings. Spread across the strait. All at once I was watching 9 lights on the water again, the same count as last night's maximum. 9. Denise confirmed. We watched them move south. Slow. Steady. Same speed. 1.2 knots against the current. 2:11. A 10th light appeared. Bearing 165. South of us. They've never gone past 9, Denise said. 2:13. 11th. 2:14. 12th. 2:15. I stopped counting. The entire strait, from shore to shore, from our position north to the limit of visibility south, was illuminated. Not by discrete circles anymore. The circles were overlapping, merging. The water's surface was becoming a continuous sheet of silver light. Second moonlight. Everywhere. The strait looked like midday under a white sun. Every wave crest was visible. Every vessel hull cast a shadow, but the shadows pointed at angles that didn't correspond to any sky object. Each shadow pointed toward a slightly different position below the horizon, as if lit by dozens of sources arranged in an arc where the moon's path would be if it continued underground. Denise. I see it. The ships. The crews on those ships. Can they see this? She was already on the radio scanner, flipping through channels. Maritime VHF. Static. Normal traffic communications. A pilot boat coordinating with an inbound tanker. No one reporting anomalous illumination. They can't see it, I said. Only us. Only us in this building. On this floor. At this angle. How do you know that? Because Tarek tried. He called the Coast Guard once. Reported unusual luminescence. They sent a patrol boat. The boat drove through the center of a light he could see from the window. They reported nothing. Dark water. Normal conditions. So it's not just human eyes. It's human eyes from here. From the tower. Yes. The light was still intensifying. The straight surface now looked like polished platinum. I could see details on the Asian shore I'd never noticed. Specific trees, a bench, a bicycle chained to a railing, all lit in cold silver from below. 2:30. My monitor flickered. Not the overhead lights this time. My workstation display. A single frame of static, then back to normal. 2:31. Denizer's monitors flickered. 2:32. All 7 bays simultaneously. 1 second of noise. Then normal. 2:33. The low-light camera on channel 6, the one that had shown nothing last time I checked, was displaying an image. The straight, lit silver white. The camera could see it now. Denize. Channel 6. She looked. Her breath caught. The camera feed showed exactly what our eyes showed. The water was a mirror of false moonlight. The lights were visible to the instrument. That's never, she started. Every camera. Every channel. I flipped through them. Channels 1 through 7. All showing the illumination. Thermal was still blank. No heat signature. But visual spectrum cameras, which had never captured the phenomenon before, were now recording it. Something changed, I said. It's not hiding anymore. 2:40. The illumination was still growing. Brighter now. The floor of the monitoring suite was lit by it, cold silver light pouring through the windows, casting sharp shadows of our chairs and desks across the concrete. We were being moonlit by something that wasn't the moon. I looked at my hands. They were silver. The shadows of my fingers stretched toward the east wall, pointing away from the phenomenon's apparent source. And then I noticed my shadow. I had 2. One pointing east, away from the straight, away from the lights on the water. Normal. And one pointing down, directly into the floor, as if a light source were directly above me. I looked up. The ceiling was concrete. Flat. Grey. Unchanged. No light source. But my downward shadow was getting darker. 2:44 a.m. I looked at Denize. She had 2 shadows as well. One on the east wall. One on the floor beneath her. Denize. Your shadow. She looked down. Then up at me. Go to the east window, she said. Look at the sky. I walked to the opposite side of the floor. The east-facing windows showed the Asian shoreline, the hills above Uskadar, and the sky. The sky was wrong. Not dramatically. Not obviously. But wrong. The stars above the eastern horizon were slightly, very slightly, displaced, as if seen through a lens that bent their positions by fractions of a degree. Like heat shimmer, but it was May and the air temperature was 12 degrees. No thermal distortion possible. And among the displaced stars, very faint, very high, almost at zenith, there was a luminosity that shouldn't be there. Not a star. Not a planet. Not a satellite. A disk. Pale. Maybe half a degree across, the same angular size as the moon. But not the moon. The moon was a crescent tonight, and it was below the horizon. This was full, round, directly overhead. And it was getting brighter. "I can see it," I called to Denise. "There's something directly above us." "I know," she said. She hadn't moved from the north window. "I've known for 3 months. But I've never seen it this bright." "What is it?" "It's where the light comes from. It's what illuminates the water. It's always there, directly above the tower, in a position no astronomical object occupies, visible only from the angles this building provides." "A second moon." "No, not a moon. Moon's orbit. This doesn't move. It's fixed above us. Always has been. The lights on the water are its reflections. They scatter because the water moves. But the source is stationary. Always directly overhead. Always the same angular size as the moon." I looked up at it. The disk was brighter now, clearly visible against the stars. Silver white. Featureless. No craters. No Maria. A perfect circle of even, cold light. It looked back. I don't know how to explain that in terms that make physical sense. It's a disk of light. It doesn't have features. It doesn't have eyes. But at 2:47 a.m., when I looked directly at it, I felt the weight of return attention. The same way you feel someone staring at the back of your head in a quiet room. Except this was coming from directly above. Pressing down. My downward shadow darkened further. "Don't look at it for more than a few seconds," Denise said. Tarek's notebook says sustained observation was difficult. I looked away. The afterimage stayed, a perfect silver disk floating in my vision wherever I turned, slowly fading over 30 seconds. "Denise, what does Carador actually want from us?" "They want to know if it's still there. That's all. They want human eyes to confirm, every night, that the phenomenon remains stationary and its reflections on the water maintain their pattern. As long as the pattern holds, the lights appear after the real moon sets, they move south, they fade before dawn, everything is stable. And if the pattern changes, then we report equipment issues. The gathering, the convergence, the increased count, the cameras seeing it now. All of this is an equipment issue." "Yes." "So what happens when Vulcan hears that?" Denise finally turned from the window. The silver light from the strait made her face look carved from marble. Her 2 shadows stretched behind her and below her. "I don't know. In 4 years, I've never had to report it. The pattern was stable. Tarek's 5 was the maximum. The cameras never captured it. The second moon stayed faint." She paused. "Everything is different now." 2:55 a.m. The disk above was clearly visible without straining. Brighter than Venus. Still perfectly circular. Still directly overhead. The water reflections, the scattered lights on the strait, were no longer moving south. They were still. All of them. Every patch of silver light on the water. Stationary. "They've stopped," I said. I watched for a full minute. No drift. No movement. The Bosphorus was sheeted in motionless light. Then, slowly, very slowly, the lights began to move. North. Against their previous direction. Against the current. Against every observation I'd made over 2 months. They were moving north. Toward us. Denise. I see it. The silver patches on the water drifted northward. Converging. Not toward a point on the water. Toward the base of our building. The tower's foundation meets the strait at a concrete seawall on the building's west face. The lights were gathering there. 3:04 a.m. The water directly below our windows was white, blazing silver. I could see the bottom, the actual seabed below the strait's edge at our foundation, illuminated as clearly as a swimming pool. Rocks, sediment, a shopping cart, an anchor chain. The light was concentrating at our base, and the disk above was brighter still. My downward shadow was now sharper than my horizontal one. The pressure from above was physical, not painful, but present. Weight without mass. Like the air had thickened directly over the tower. "This is the equipment issue," Denai said. She picked up the desk phone. Internal line. Dialed a 4-digit number. It rang 7 times. No answer. She dialed again. 8 rings. Nothing. "Vulcan's line is dead." "He doesn't work at night," she said. "He never has. Whatever he does with our reports, he does it in daylight. When this," she gestured at the windows, the blazing water, the impossible disk above, "when this isn't happening." 3:10 a.m. I made a decision. I took my phone from my pocket, opened the camera, pointed it at the window, at the illuminated strait below. The phone screen showed dark water. I pointed it straight up through the east window, toward where the disk was clearly visible to my eyes. The screen showed normal stars. Cameras on our system could see it now, but my phone could not. "Only the building's cameras," I said. "Only the building sees. The building was built to see. We are the building's eyes." 3:15 a.m. Something changed in the quality of the light below. The white glare at our foundation shifted, brightened in one specific area, a circle maybe 3 meters across, directly at the seawall. And within that circle, the water began to move differently. Not with waves. Not with current. It was rising. A column of water, silver-lit, smooth, cylindrical, rose from the straight surface at our building's base. 1 meter. 2. 3. It didn't splash or fall. It just stood there. A pillar of illuminated water, perfectly still, 3 meters tall, directly below the 16th floor. Then 5 meters. 8. 10. It was growing toward us. "It's never done this," Denai said. I heard something in her voice I'd never heard before. Not fear exactly. Recognition. "This is what Tarek saw," she said. "This is why he left." The pillar reached 20 meters. 30. Still rising. Still perfectly smooth. The light within it was interior. The water itself was luminous, not lit from outside. 40 meters. It was more than halfway to our floor. "We need to leave," I said. Denai's didn't move. Denai's. "If we leave, no one is watching. If no one is watching, there's no report. If there's no report, I don't care about the report. If there's no report, no one knows it changed. No one knows it's reaching." 50 meters. The pillar's top was level with the 12th floor. I could see it through the window, a cylinder of silver water, impossibly vertical, impossibly still, rising in absolute silence. 60 meters. 14th floor. Denai's. "We are leaving this floor now." She looked at me. Her eyes reflected the silver light. Both her shadows were dark and sharp, one on the wall, one on the floor. And in her eyes, I could see the disk above reflected, though she was facing me, not the sky. The disk was in her eyes from the wrong angle. "It's not outside," she said quietly. It was never outside. The water, the lights, the disk, it's how this building processes what's above it. We are the retina. It sees through us. 65 meters. 16th floor. The pillar's top was level with our windows. Through the glass, 3 meters away, I was looking at a wall of illuminated water. Vertical. Still. The light inside it pulsed slowly, a rhythm I realized I'd been feeling in my chest for the last 10 minutes without identifying. The water's surface, the pillar's face, was not entirely smooth. Up close, I could see texture. Shapes within the luminescence. They look like figures. Not human exactly, but structured. Repeating. The same form, multiplied hundreds of times within the pillar's visible face. Each one approximately human-sized. Each one oriented toward our window. Each one with 2 dark points where eyes would be. 3:22 a.m. Looking at us. The way we'd been looking at them. I grabbed Deniz's arm. Pulled her toward the elevator. She didn't resist, but she didn't help. Her body moved like someone in deep distraction, present but focused elsewhere. The elevator took 40 seconds to arrive. I watched the pillar through the corridor window during those 40 seconds. It didn't rise further. It stayed at our level. The figures within it didn't move. They just watched. The elevator arrived. We descended. 14 floors of humming cable and mechanical rhythm. Ground level. Lobby. I pulled Deni's toward the exit. Through the glass doors I could see the street. Normal, dark, quiet. A parked car. A street light. I pushed through the doors into the night air. And stopped. The moonlight was wrong. Not the second moonlight. The actual moonlight. Except the moon had set at 22:10 and it was now 3:24 a.m. and there should be no moonlight at all. But the street was lit. Silver white. My shadow stretched behind me toward the east. I looked up. The disk was there. Directly overhead. Clear and round and bright as a full moon. I was outside the building now. On the street. With my phone. I raised my phone. Opened the camera. Pointed it at the sky. The screen showed the disk. My phone could see it now. I could see it outside the building now. Whatever had been contained to the tower's observation angle, whatever had been visible only from inside, only to the building's eyes, was no longer contained. Deni's stepped out behind me. Looked up. Looked at me. It's above everywhere now, she said. I looked down the street. Both directions. The silver light illuminated everything. Buildings, trees, parked cars. Every surface was moonlit. Every object cast a shadow pointing away from directly overhead. 3:25 a.m. on an Istanbul street. Not a soul awake. Not a witness except us. And the thing that has been above this tower, watching the water, watching through us, watching for however long it has occupied that impossible fixed point in the sky, is now visible to any human eye that looks up. We walked back inside. Took the elevator up. Returned to the 16th floor. The pillar was gone. The water was dark. The strait was quiet. But the disk remained above. And remains. That was 3 weeks ago. I still work the night shift. Deni's still works beside me. Vulcan has not asked about equipment issues. The day shift has not mentioned anything unusual. No one in Istanbul has reported a second moon. No news coverage. No social media panic. No astronomical observations. But I see it every night now. Not just from the tower, from my apartment, from the street, from anywhere I look up after the real moon sets. It's there. The same angular size. The same cold silver. Directly overhead. Fixed. And last night, for the first time, I saw it during the day. Faint. Almost invisible against the blue sky. But there. A pale circle above me that no one else seems to notice. I don't know what's watching through it. I don't know what the tower was built to observe or what we were reporting all those years. I don't know whether we were the observers or the observed, whether the building was a telescope pointed up or a window pointed down for something above to look through. I know only that it sees me now, wherever I am, whatever time. And I know that last night, for 6 seconds, it blinked. I need to be precise about what I mean by blinked. Not a flicker. Not atmospheric disturbance. Not a cloud passing between me and the disk. At 3:41 a.m. on June 8th, the disk, which I was watching from my apartment balcony in Kardikoy, 6 kilometers from the tower, went dark for approximately 2 seconds, then returned to full luminosity. The edges didn't fade. The center didn't dim first. The entire circle ceased to emit visible light, held that absence, and resumed. Like an eye closing and opening. I timed the interval between the onset of darkness and the return of light using my phone's stopwatch. I'd started keeping the stopwatch app open during observations out of habit. 1.93 seconds. I wrote it in the notebook. Circled it. Then I sat on my balcony for another hour watching. It didn't blink again that night. June 9th, shift start at 8 p.m. I told Denise immediately. She was quiet for a long time. Then she opened Tarek's green notebook to a page near the middle, one I hadn't read. She held it up for me. The entry was dated November 14th, 2022. It read, Occlusion event. 3:15. Duration estimated 1 to 2 seconds. Full cessation of disk luminosity followed by immediate resumption. First recorded instance. Interpretation. Unknown. Hypothesis. Attentional cycle. The source is not constant. It observes in intervals. Between intervals it is not observing. This is significant. Below that, in smaller writing, if it blinks, it is not a light. It is an eye. Eyes have a direction. Eyes have a focus. Something is looking and periodically not looking. What happens when it is not looking? Tarek had underlined that last question 3 times. He saw it once, Denai said. In 4 years, once. You've seen it after 3 weeks of enhanced activity. What does that mean? It means the intervals are shortening. June 10th. I decided to do something Tarek apparently never did and Denise had never attempted. I decided to measure what happened during the blink. My method was simple. I set up a consumer video camera, a small Sony Handycam I bought at a second-hand electronics shop in Kardikoy, on a tripod on my apartment balcony. I pointed it at the sky where the disk appears. I ran it continuously from moonset until dawn. I knew my phone could now capture the disk. I assumed the Handycam would as well. If the disk blinked, the camera would record the exact duration and any visual artifacts surrounding the event. I ran the camera for 3 consecutive nights. June 10th, 11, 12. Each morning I reviewed the footage. June 10th. Disk visible on recording from 23:30 onward. Steady. No blink. 8 hours of footage showing a motionless silver circle in the sky. June 11th. Same. No blink. June 12th. Blink at 4:02 a.m. I watched the footage frame by frame. The camera recorded at 30 frames per second. The blink lasted 58 frames, 1.93 seconds. The same duration I'd timed manually. But the camera showed something I hadn't seen with my eyes. During the 58 frames of darkness, during the 1.93 seconds when the disk was not visible, the stars behind its position were wrong. Not displaced, as I'd observed before around the disk's edges. Wrong in a different way. During the blink, the stars visible in the disk's former position did not match any catalog star field. I'm not an astronomer, but I compared the frames to a star chart application. The stars visible behind the disk during its absence were not stars that should be at that position from Istanbul's latitude at that time of year. They were stars from a different sky. A sky seen from a different location, or a different angle, than the surface of the Earth. I showed Denise the footage on June 13th. She watched the relevant frames 4 times. Then she sat back in her chair and pressed her palms flat on the desk. "It's not blocking our sky," she said. "It's replacing a section of our sky with its own. Like a window. Like a window that's open as long as the eye is open. When it blinks, closes, we see through the gap for less than 2 seconds. And what's on the other side isn't our sky. Then when it's watching us, we can't see what's behind it. We only see the eye itself." Yes. And the eye is what looks like a moon. A moon is a disk in the sky that reflects light downward. From our perspective, functionally, there's no difference. Except this one is aware. And stationary. And it blinks. June 15th, 2:20 a.m. I was on shift. I observed the blink directly for the first time since June 8th. Duration, 1.93 seconds. I was watching the water when it happened. During the blink, during the less than 2 seconds when the disk was dark, the silver light on the strait vanished. Total darkness on the water for that interval. Then the light returned. But during those 2 seconds, I saw something on the water's surface. Something that was only visible when the light was absent. Dark shapes. Moving. Fast. Covering distance across the straight's surface at speeds far exceeding any vessel. Lateral movement, not following current or shipping lanes. Multiple shapes, impossible to count in less than 2 seconds. Covering the water's surface in what looked like coordinated rapid transit. Then the light returned and they were gone. The water was silver-lit and empty again. I grabbed the notebook. Wrote. During blink, dark shapes on water surface, multiple, fast lateral movement, only visible in absence of disk illumination, disappear when light resumes. What moves when IT isn't watching? Denise was at her station. She hadn't seen. She'd been looking at the monitors, not the window. I told her. She listened. Then she opened Tarek's notebook again and read me an entry from December 2022, 1 month after his single recorded blink. I believe the illumination is not observation. The illumination is suppression. What's in the water does not appear under the light. The light keeps it still. The light keeps it down. The source is not watching us. It is watching them. We were never the subject. We are the keepers of the lamp. Denise closed the notebook. Tarek believed the disk, the second moon, is a containment mechanism, she said. Not surveillance. Containment. It watches the water to keep something in the water from moving. When it blinks, when its attention lapses, whatever it's suppressing becomes briefly active. And Carador. Carador monitors whether the containment is stable. We are not intelligence analysts. We are wardens. We watch to confirm that the thing above is still watching. That it hasn't blinked too long. That what's beneath hasn't gotten out. What's beneath? I don't know. Tarek didn't know. I don't think Volker knows. The system doesn't require us to know what we are containing. It only requires us to confirm the light is on. I sat with that for a long time. The straight was silver. The disk was overhead. Everything stable. But the blinks were getting more frequent. Tarek saw one in 4 years. I'd seen 2 in a week. June 17th through June 24th. I documented 7 blinks. Durations: 1.93, 1.93, 1.94, 1.93, 1.95, 1.93, 1.93 seconds. Consistent within hundredths. But the intervals between them were compressing. June 17th, blink at 3:44. June 19th, blink at 2:55. June 20th, blink at 3:12. June 21st, blink at 1:58. June 22nd, 2 blinks, 2:30 and 4:01. June 24th, blink at 2:44. The interval between events was shrinking from days to hours. And on June 22nd, 2 blinks in one night. Each time it blinked, I watched the water. Each time, I saw the dark shapes. Fast. Lateral. Covering more distance with each event, as if testing how far they could travel before the light returned. June 25th. I reported equipment issues to Vulcan. He appeared on the 16th floor within 4 hours, the first time I'd ever seen him during night shift. He arrived at 1:30 a.m., wearing a grey coat and looking like he hadn't slept. He didn't look at the water. He didn't look out the windows at all. He sat at the conference table at the back of the floor and asked us to describe what we'd observed. I told him everything. The increased light count. The cameras now capturing the phenomenon. The pillar. The disk's visibility outside the building. The blinks. The dark shapes during blinks. He wrote nothing down. He listened with his hands flat on the table, the same gesture Denise makes when processing something serious. When I finished, he asked one question. How long between blinks now? 36 hours at most. Sometimes less. 2 in one night on the 22nd. He nodded. Then he stood. Continue observation. Document blink times. If the interval between blinks drops below 12 hours, call this number. He placed a business card on the table. Plain white. A phone number. No name. No organization. What happens at 12 hours? I asked. I don't know. I was told to give you this number if the interval reached 12 hours. I was told nothing about what happens next. He left. Took the elevator down. I heard the lobby doors open and close. Denise picked up the card. Turned it over. Blank on both sides except the number. Country code +41. Swiss. We are reporting to Switzerland, she said. We are reporting to someone in Switzerland. Or someone with a Swiss number. She put the card in her desk drawer, next to Tarek's notebook and the photographs. June 28th. 3 blinks in one night. 1:15, 2:47, 4:30. Interval. 92 minutes between first and second. 103 between second and third. During the 4:30 blink, I was positioned at the window. Ready. Watching. 1.93 seconds of darkness. The shapes on the water. I counted this time. I counted as fast as I could. 14. At minimum 14 distinct dark forms, moving laterally across the straight surface at what I estimated as 40 to 50 knots. Not swimming. Not sailing. Sliding. Like shadows cast by nothing, moving against the water's grain. And one of them, the nearest, maybe 300 meters from the tower's base, changed direction during the blink. It turned toward us. Then the light returned. And they were all gone. One of them turned, I told Denise. She didn't respond for a long time. Toward the building. Yes. July 1st. The interval dropped below 12 hours for the first time. Blink at 3:10 a.m. Next blink at 1:44 a.m. the following shift. 22 hours and 34 minutes. Then a blink at 8:15 a.m. during daylight hours, visible only as a brief dimming of the faint daytime disk, 6 hours and 31 minutes after the previous. I called the number. It rang twice. A woman answered in English. No greeting. No identification. Interval, she said. 6 hours, 31 minutes. Last 3 events. Confirm location. Istanbul Asian, Tower 4. Yes. Duration of most recent event. 1.93 seconds. Silence. Then, duration will begin to extend. When duration exceeds 3 seconds, call again. She hung up. Duration will begin to extend. The blinks, which had been mechanically consistent at 1.93 seconds across dozens of observations, were going to get longer. The containment was going to lapse for more than 2 seconds at a time. Whatever was being held still under the second moonlight was going to have more time to move. July 3rd. Blink at 2:55 a.m. I was timing. 2.41 seconds. I felt the difference in my body before I read the stopwatch. The darkness lasted longer. The silver absent stretched. And during those 2.41 seconds, the shapes on the water, I couldn't count them. There were too many. The entire visible surface of the strait was covered in rapid lateral movement. Dark forms led over each other, crossing and recrossing. And the one that had turned toward us on June 28th, or one like it, was closer now. Maybe 100 meters from the seawall. The light returned. They vanished. But the water where that nearest shape had been was disturbed. Physically disturbed. Waves radiating outward from a point 100 meters from our foundation. Visible on the thermal camera. Registering as a temperature anomaly. 0.3 degrees cooler than surrounding surface water. A physical trace. They were becoming real enough to leave marks. July 5th, 2.87 seconds. July 7th, 3.14 seconds. I called the Swiss number again. Same woman. Same flat tone. Duration. 3.14 seconds. Confirmed. Stand by for instructions. I waited. 40 seconds of silence. You will receive a delivery within 6 hours. Contents are not to be opened. Contents are to be placed on the building's roof. The flat section, northeast quadrant. Do not position them elsewhere. Do not delay placement beyond 1 hour after receipt. What are we receiving? Reflective material. High albedo panels. They will supplement the source during lapse intervals. Supplement, you mean reflect the light. They will maintain illumination on the water surface for the duration of each blink. Artificial moonlight. To bridge the gap. And that will keep them, the things in the water, still. It has worked previously. Previously? This has happened before. This is Tower 4. There are 11 towers. This has happened at others. The supplemental panels resolve the issue for 3 to 5 years before the next escalation. Typically. At one site, the panels were insufficient. The blink duration exceeded the panel's charge capacity. The gap was not bridged. What happened? She paused. 2 seconds. That tower is no longer staffed. The line went dead. The delivery arrived at 8:30 a.m. on July 8th. A white van. No markings. 2 men who spoke no Turkish and wore no identification. They carried 12 flat cases to the freight elevator. Each case was roughly 2 meters by 1 meter, heavy, sealed with industrial latches. I helped them onto the roof. They unpacked the panels, matte silver surfaces, rigid, mounted on adjustable frames. They positioned them in the northeast quadrant exactly as instructed, angled them toward the water. The men left without speaking. That night, July 8th, the blink came at 3:33 a.m. Duration: 3.22 seconds. During those 3.22 seconds, the panels on the roof activated. I don't know how. There's no visible power source, no wiring, no switch. But when the disk went dark, the panels began emitting silver light downward onto the straight surface. Artificial second moonlight. Through the window, I watched. The water stayed lit, dimmer than under the disk's direct illumination, but lit. Silver. Continuous. And the dark shapes did not appear. The panels worked. The gap was bridged. The containment held. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in a month. July 9th through July 20th, blinks continued. Intervals shortened to 4 hours, then 3. Duration crept upward. 3.5, 3.8, 4.1 seconds. The panels activated each time. The water stayed lit. No shapes. Denise and I settled into a new normal. Watch. Time the blinks. Confirm the panels activate. Report weekly to the Swiss number. But on July 21st, during the 2:15 blink, duration 4.4 seconds, I noticed something about the panel's light. It was slightly different from the disk's light. Warmer. More amber. Less purely silver. And during the panel illumination, while the disk was dark, I could see the water clearly. No shapes. Nothing moving. But there were marks on the seawall. Scratches. Long lateral gouges in the concrete, below the water line, visible only because the panel light hit the wall at a lower angle than the disk's overhead illumination. Marks that weren't there at the start of summer. Something had been touching our building. During the blinks. Before the panels were installed. During those weeks when the shapes were moving freely in the dark. Something had reached the wall. I went down the next morning. Low tide exposes 30 centimeters of the seawall's base. I brought a flashlight. The scratches were real. Deep. Parallel. Spaced at intervals of roughly 8 centimeters. Running horizontally along the wall for at least 15 meters. Some were fresh, pale concrete exposed beneath the weathered surface. Some were not fresh. Some were old. Decades old, judging by the algae growth and mineral deposits filling them. This has been happening for a very long time. Long before Carador. Long before the tower was a monitoring station. The panels bridge the gap now. The containment holds. The shapes don't move when the light stays on. But the scratches tell me that the containment has lapsed before. Many times. Over many years. And each time, something reached the wall. Tested it. Marked it. And each time, apparently, it receded when the light returned. I still work the night shift. Denise still works beside me. The blinks come every few hours now, lasting 5 seconds, sometimes 6. The panels handle it. The water stays lit. But 3 nights ago, July 24th, during a 5.8-second blink, I saw something I haven't told Denise about yet. The panels activated as usual. The water stayed lit. No shapes appeared on the surface. But in the panel light, In that slightly warmer, slightly amber artificial moonlight, I saw a reflection on the water that didn't belong to anything above. A face, looking up from beneath the surface, approximately where the scratches are deepest on the seawall. Human features, approximately. Eyes open, mouth closed, motionless, looking at the building. Looking, I think, at me. The disc came back. The panel light faded. The face was gone. But the disc's light, the proper second moonlight, didn't illuminate that section of the seawall. The angle was wrong. Directly overhead, the disc's light hits the open water, not the near surface beneath the building shadow. There is a blind spot, directly at the tower's base, where the disc cannot illuminate because the building itself blocks the angle, and the panels light the water. But they also light the blind spot. They show me what lives in the shadow of the thing that keeps it contained. I think about Tarek's question every night now. What moves when it isn't watching? And I think about a question he didn't ask. One that might be more important. What has already arrived, and is waiting in the one place the eye above was never designed to see? The scratches on the seawall go down further than I can measure. Below the water line. Below where I can reach. But I can hear them now. At shift's quietest, when the coffee machine cycles off and the building's ventilation settles between its mechanical breaths. A faint sound from below. Rhythmic. Patient. Like something running its fingers along the wall. Counting windows up.